Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto.
In a world on the brink of disruption, two men will bring you clarity by interviewing some of the most intelligent and influential names in the blockchain world. Welcome to Show Me the Crypto with your hosts, Wade Patterson and Ulf Lonergan.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Show Me the Crypto. My name is Wade Patterson.
And I'm Ulf Lonergan.
We're a couple of friends from Canada who love learning about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and we're happy you're along for the ride. Whether you're a crypto virgin or you know your way around the block, we hope our interviews with some of the most intelligent and influential people in the space help deliver you with value. And on this episode, we're joined by Litecoin creator and OG crypto legend, Charlie Lee. On October 13th, 2011, nearly 10 years ago to this date, Charlie unveiled Litecoin to the world with the aim of creating the digital silver to Bitcoin's gold. A decade later, Litecoin continues to stand strong as a top 15 cryptocurrency by market cap, and Charlie works as managing director of the Litecoin Foundation with a focus on Litecoin adoption. Charlie, welcome to Show Me the Crypto.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
We're stoked to have you. And just a little context for your audience, or for our audience, one of the things we're excited about is that you were our first Hail Mary Friday guest. We have this wish list of guests that we created when we started this show who we'd love to get on the show. And every Friday we tweet a random unsolicited invitation at them. And you're the first one to say yes. So thank you so much for doing that.
I'm the first sucker to actually fall for this.
That's right. That's right. No, I think we're going to have fun. It's going to be a good conversation. I want to start off before we dive too deep into crypto. My understanding is you were born in Ivory Coast, and then when you were 13 years old, you came to the US. But was tech always kind of a focus of your upbringing? Or at what point in life were you kind of like, okay, this is a career path I want to go down?
Ever since I was a little kid, my dad got us a computer, and I've been playing with computer games, been programming, like basic programming on the Apple TGS since I was a little kid. So I kind of really gravitated towards computer software engineering, studied that in college, and kind of just did that ever since.
Awesome. And further to kind of just a little bit of your story here, you worked as a software engineer at Google from 2007 to 2013. During that time, what were you working on, and at what point did you then discover Bitcoin?
Yeah, let's see. So 2007. So I joined Google. I worked on YouTube initially, YouTube mobile.
Nice.
This was the mobile website, and also this is when they started doing. They launched the YouTube app on the iPhone. And after that, I worked on, let's see, what else I worked on? I worked on Chrome OS, so with the Chrome team. And then also worked on Google Play Games, which is their initial foray into games development API, like doing the gamer points and high scores and stuff on Android.
And then, okay, so you're working at Google on these projects. How did Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, stumble into your life?
Yeah, in 2011, I read the white paper. And for most people who actually read a white paper, you just kind of, you get hooked, right? And then you kind of try to read everything about Bitcoin. And before you know it, you're spending like 90% of your time on Bitcoin. That's basically what happened to me. And then for like and then the end of 2011 or October 2011, I created Litecoin and was working on that for a while. This is like on the side, kind of like my 20% project at Google. And then kind of for the next like year, I was just kind of doing more stuff on crypto than at work, right? Even at work, I was thinking about crypto or like browsing the forums. And I figured, I guess I should probably just do crypto for a full-time job. And that's when in 2013, I left Google and joined Coinbase. That was a very risky move at that time.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because I lived in Mountain View. Google was in Mountain View. Coinbase was in the city in San Francisco, which is like an hour away. So I increased my commute by like 2 hours a day. Got like paid half as much as Google paid me. Didn't have massages, didn't have all the perks that Google had. So I gave all that just so that I can work on crypto. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was the right decision.
That's so interesting. I want to dive into a couple things you just mentioned there. So first off, back in those OG days, like you mentioned forums there, but like today we have Telegram, Discord, crypto Twitter. Like there's so many places to be communicating with others in the community. But what was that like back then? Like you discover this technology, clearly you know that it's going to be impactful, but were you communicating with a lot of other OGs in the space? And if so, how was that done?
The Bitcoin Talk Forum was pretty much the only place where people talked about Bitcoin at that time. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about like 2011. The crazy thing I talked about this a few times is, the crazy thing in 2011, like you can pretty much read everything that's happening in this space, just by kind of browsing the new topics, the new comments on Bitcoin Talk Forum. Everything everyone is doing is all there. Like it'll take you like most of your day to follow everything, but you can, right? Wow. Today there's like, it doesn't even make sense.
Like trying to follow the internet or something.
Yeah, everything that's happening in crypto space. It makes no sense that you can do anything remotely close to that today.
Yeah, no doubt. That's it's a different world, I'm sure, from back then. Okay, so you get hooked. You're learning about Bitcoin. Like, at what point did you think, hey, I'm gonna create my own cryptocurrency? And how did Litecoin come about? What was the purpose in your head of creating Litecoin versus Bitcoin? And why did you name it Litecoin? What's the full story behind that?
Yeah, actually initially when I first found about Bitcoin, I was reading about Bitcoin, and then there was this website called Bitcoin Plus, and I was a little bit confused whether that's another coin or not. It turns out it wasn't. Right at that time, Bitcoin Plus was I think a website that was mining Bitcoin using your CPU. It was a kind of CPU miner website. So when I after kind of playing around with Bitcoin, I was just checking out the code base, and there were a few other coins launched, like a clone of Bitcoin. The first one was Namecoin. There was like Solidcoin, Xcoin, IOCoin. There's a lot of coins that you actually don't hear about today anymore. And I guess I decided to dive in and create my own, try to do it better than what's out there. I think one of the most important thing I did was try to make it as fair as possible. So no pre-mines. Everyone gets a chance to mine at the same time when I launch the coin, and then just try to make everything as fair as possible. And I think because of that, Litecoin took off and stayed around, whereas the other coins didn't.
And what were like some of the key, I guess, unique properties that you felt, gave an advantage to Litecoin, or at least an alternative to Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's just the simple thing is just the transaction time. So I understand why Satoshi chose 10 minutes. I think it's conservative. The problem I ran into in those days is I did a lot of kind of in-person trades, buying Bitcoin from people, because in 2011 the only exchange that really worked was Mt. Gox, and you had to wire money to a bank in Japan, or you had to use a third-party service called Dwolla, which is kind of like PayPal. They pull the money from your bank account and then they deposit into Mt. Gox, but it's very flaky. There's a lot of issues with it. It's just really hard to buy Bitcoin. So there was, I think it's local Bitcoin around where you can meet up with people selling Bitcoin and you can buy Bitcoin from them. In 2011, that was not dangerous. No one was trying to steal your Bitcoins after they meet you. These days, I don't recommend doing that at all.
Yeah.
So in 2011, when I was buying Bitcoin from these people, I mean, everyone was really friendly. The thing is, you still have to be careful, right? You don't want to get scammed. So I would meet people in McDonald's, and they would send me, and I would bring cash, right? They would send me like a few $1,000s, right? They would send me some Bitcoins, and then I would have to kind of wait for at least one confirmation, right? So normally, on average, Bitcoin transactions happen in 10 minutes. But sometimes, like because of the randomness of the mining, how Bitcoin mining works, it could be 1 minute, you get another block, or it could be like an hour, right? So once I was doing this, I waited with this guy like at McDonald's for like an hour for this confirmation to confirm before I gave him the
You
cash.
guys
right?
got through lots of McNuggets.
Yeah. So I mean, we had a good conversation. And always at the back of my mind, I was wondering if he's trying to scam me.
Yeah.
But so I realized that the one confirmation, having that being fast makes a difference. Even though like security wise, it's the same as how much like hash power is on the network, right? But just getting the first confirmation really speeds everything up. And if anyone, I tell people who really who says bad things about Litecoin, I just tell them try using it, right? Try using that compared to try using Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's not as secure as Bitcoin. If you're sending millions of dollars of Litecoin, you want to wait for like whatever 20, 30 confirmations. You want to wait like an hour. But the first confirmation, you don't have to like sit there and wait 30 minutes for the first confirmation. It happens every 2.5 minutes. Worst case, 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a really slow block for Litecoin. Whereas for Bitcoin, it's like an hour. So it just makes a huge difference in terms of how fast it feels like the coins are moving.
I'm just envisioning the two of you sitting in this McDonald's and somebody nearby like overhearing this crazy conversation about waiting for this digital money and thinking you guys are crazy, when really they should have paid attention, because that would have been a beneficial thing for them to jump onto as well. Considering you're still at Google at the time you created Litecoin, I mean, what were your coworkers and that kind of, like, is this something you talked to other people about? Like, what did they think about the fact that you were, or even your peers or your family, the fact that you were creating your own cryptocurrency?
Well, it wasn't a big thing. Like I didn't tell anyone right. Like family, friends, or coworkers about me creating Litecoin. I did talk to people about Bitcoin, but when I created Litecoin, it wasn't like I wasn't setting out to create this big like coin, right, on alternative Bitcoin. It was kind of just for fun, right? There was a tight community around it. People were mining Litecoin from the start, very passionate group of people around it. But that was it. It was a very, very small community. Even Bitcoin itself was extremely small, right? So back then in 2011, like no one's heard about Bitcoin, right? I try to tell people, try to explain it. It's hard to get.
Yeah, exactly. And I read that prior to creating Litecoin, you had another attempt at launching a different cryptocurrency called Fairbix. What was that all about?
Yeah, so what happened was there was a currency called Tenebrix, which was the first altcoin that used script mining algorithm. So it was, which made it possible for CPU mining of Tenebrix. And that was very innovative. But the problem with Tenebrix was it came with 7 million coins pre-mined. So the idea was that the creator, if it became popular, the coin became like worth $1, then he would have $7 million coins to himself. And a lot of people were really against the idea of pre-mining back then. So they pushed for creating this basically a fork of Tenebrix called Fairbix, which is just a fair version of Tenebrix. Right? It's basically Tenebrix with the pre-mining stripped out. And the person who had that idea was looking for someone technical enough to do this, right? So I kind of just volunteered and helped launch Fairbix. Fairbix had the launch of Fairbix had a lot of problems because of the code base the Tenebrix code base was using. It wasn't forked from Bitcoin. It was forked from a a repo called Multicoin, which just had a lot of bugs in it. So after that failed kind of start of Fairbricks, that's when I kind of went back on a drawing board and decided, why don't I just do a clean launch of a new coin, call it Litecoin, like a light version of Bitcoin, and just basically copy fork Bitcoin and just change a few parameters, right? The stuff that I think was important, making it CPU mineable, making it faster. And I think the being CPU mineable from the start was really important because the miners mining the coin were basically the early adopters of that coin, and they would be out there pushing for adoption, getting other people to start using it, start playing around with it. So if everyone can easily mine this coin, then that opens up the user base quite a bit. Whereas if it's only mineable by GPUs, then you have these like GPU farms or people who have computers with tons of GPUs in them just mining Bitcoin. Then those are the people be mining Litecoin, which reduces the initial user base. So I think it was very important for Litecoin to succeed.
You kind of talk about that like that was maybe like a hypothesis, but is that true in how it played out after the launch of Litecoin? Was that part of Litecoin's adoption, and how did that sort of launch go from like a traction standpoint?
Yeah, I believe pretty much that was why Litecoin succeeded. Just the fact that there were like anyone can have a computer mining Litecoin. So I was mining Litecoin initially with my personal computer at home, and don't tell Google I was using the Google work computer to mine Litecoin. It wasn't mining like a lot of coins, right? It's because there were so many people. There's like thousands, tens of thousands of people mining. Back then, when I launched Litecoin, it was launched as like a thread on the Bitcoin Talk forum, and everyone in the space, all the Bitcoin miners, everyone in Bitcoin was reading those forums and were following. So they were all like playing around with these altcoins and mining Litecoin from the beginning. Yeah, the other fortunate thing about Litecoin is just so happened when Bitcoin ASICs came out, all the GPU miners of Bitcoin, all those GPUs became unprofitable mining Bitcoin because the ASICs were so much more efficient. And just so happens at the same time, Litecoin GPU mining became possible. So all the Bitcoin GPU miners turned towards mining Litecoin. And it was just a simple like transition. So Litecoin all of a sudden became a GPU mined coin. And then those Bitcoin miners that were mining Litecoin became supporters of Litecoin. So that kind of helped grow the user base of Litecoin also. So it was kind of very fortunate.
Yeah, that's a nice coincidental timing.
Not planned
to
at
just,
all, yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So part of our show is to be educational and to, help be an unintimidating space for people that are new to crypto. And, speaking about Litecoin and Bitcoin, these are proof of work blockchains, and there's a lot of hype or notoriety around proof of stake or delegated proof of stake these days. What's your take on proof of work versus proof of stake, pros or cons? What's your general thoughts on that?
I think I'm a proof of work guy, which should be pretty clear. So I'm not big on proof of stake. I think proof of stake has been around even before crypto, before Bitcoin, right? So the concept of proof of stake is not anything new. Proof of work is actually the innovation that Satoshi created, right? That came about. So that's what's innovative, and I think that's what actually is valuable in this space, where how it's designed that miners have to there's the incentives are aligned so that they're actually doing work to protect the network, and also to undo or rewrite history costs work, which makes it prohibitively expensive to do, and that's not solved by proof of stake, right? If you have proof of stake, there are various other kind of patches to make things work better. But the general idea is that with proof of stake, if you have majority stake, you can kind of rewrite history. You kind of have total control over the network. Whereas with proof of work, if you have majority hash power, you can change the future, right? You can decide not to mine certain transactions. You can decide to 51% attack the blockchain, but you can't, at least not cost effectively, rewrite history. You can't go back in time and change stuff. Yeah, in a decentralized way.
What do you make then of some of the rhetoric, I guess, or some of the messaging that's out there of the FUD really about proof of work? I feel like that's been a theme this year, maybe coming from
like the
more
electricity
from
cost.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's to me, there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? You don't get like the best form of decentralized money for free, right? There's a cost to it, and that cost is the electricity cost. So the question is, do us as a society want to spend the resources on a money that is free and available to everyone, that's decentralized and no one can debase it, or do we want to spend the money on Christmas lights? Right? It's kind of like it's kind of equivalent, right, in terms of the amount of electricity we use today. And I say the Bitcoin is much more important than Christmas lights. So if you think electricity is too much, then we should all decide to not put up Christmas lights first, right?
Which is fair to say, well, it's still worth it. But in the greater scheme, for those who would still say, well, we can't just use it if it's like gonna destroy our planet, or if like it just the cons outweigh the pros. Is the focus then not on proof of work being bad, but rather, well, how do we solve our energy problems, and how do we start mining with maybe renewable resources or things like that?
Yeah, it's an incentives problem, right? So if people are more incentivized to mine versus doing other things, then they will do mining of cryptocurrency. So you just have to tax it properly and incentivize people to use renewable energy. It's not a specific like Bitcoin is killing Earth. It's more about just in general energy usage is, right. So how do we incentivize better energy usage, more renewable energy?
One of the, switching gears a little bit here, one of the big stories in late 2017 was the fact that, you chose to sell your Litecoin holdings. Why did you decide to do that, for those who haven't heard the story?
It kind of just occurred to me that, for one thing, just having like someone who has influence, or the creator having a lot of coins, is not good for decentralization, for one. So the second part is that I feel like it was giving me incentives to do stuff that is not good for the coin in the long run. So you see a lot of like creators like pump their coins, right? Just create kind of news to try to pump all they care about is the value going up. But that's not necessarily, I mean, that would happen in long run if the coin does well. That shouldn't be the focus, right? The focus is you want a network that works well. You want a coin that works well. You want fees to be low. You want people to be using it. You want adoption, right? And if the adoption happens, the price will rise just because of more people using it and the coin being more valuable. So it shouldn't be the focus. But whereas today, like everyone who's investing in Litecoin, well, not everyone, most people who are investing in Litecoin or in other coins, all they care about is the price, right? They can care less about adoption or anything like that. And I just want to kind of separate myself from that. I wanted to focus on adoption. I didn't want to worry about price. And I felt like selling all my coins and not trading it and just not having, I still have some for like usage of Litecoin. But I'm not like invested in it. So I feel like that was like the best thing for me. to just kind of focus on working on Litecoin without being invested in it. And most people don't realize that I'm really invested in the successful Litecoin, right? If Litecoin succeeds, like it's my creation. I feel very proud about it, and it makes I'm fully invested in it. And money to me is not what keeps me kind of working hard on Litecoin.
Yeah, this is it's like a legacy for you at this point, right? You want it to succeed because it's how people will remember you type of situations. I think it's silly for people to think that you'd only be in it for the money at this point anyways,
Yeah. I mean, I was early in Bitcoin, right? I got in Bitcoin in 2011. Back then, when I first got in, Bitcoin was $30, and over the next year, it dropped to like $2. I mean, that's insane considering what it is today. Yeah. So I didn't make my money from Litecoin. I actually, because of the way I launched Litecoin, it was launched fairly. I didn't pre-mine, so I didn't have a lot of Litecoin to begin with. And like, I don't need to tell people how many Litecoins I have. It just wasn't. It's not like Vitalik, who has $1 billion worth of Ethereum, right? I had like a tiny small percentage of what all the Litecoins out there, and it was fine. It didn't really move the needle.
No. And it's interesting hearing like the reality behind it. But at the time, we're in a 2017, 2018, like not height, but like near the height of the bull market, right? And so what was the experience like for you dealing with all the press and like the skeptics who were giving their rationales for why
Charlie timed the top?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way you can time the top. I didn't, like, my average sell price was about $200. I mean, we passed $200 quite a bit earlier this year. We're at 180 today. We hit whatever, like 380 or something like that. But I mean, it doesn't really matter in the end, right? And I've been working on it for the past 4 years since I sold. It's not like I sold and ran away. And yeah, there's still a lot of haters out there, but it's fine.
Ulf, do you realize our audience has been either watching or listening to this episode for 20 minutes?
20 minutes? No, they should probably subscribe.
Yeah, they should subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you comment and turn on notifications. And if you're listening to this podcast, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and a review.
We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. So go check out the episode description. You can find all that information below. And we have an update on the NFT, don't we?
That's right. We didn't previously mention this, but this NFT for our OG supporter is a one of one. There will only be one of this kind ever minted, and we have a few surprises for the person who purchases it. The link is in the episode description.
And back to the episode. I feel like this is a natural progression here towards what you're doing today, which is working with the Litecoin Foundation. What's the purpose of the foundation? What does your role entail? Not everybody's familiar with how foundations work in the world of like a cryptocurrency project. So maybe you can explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I can, but just a caveat is the Litecoin Foundation works very differently from all the other crypto foundations.
Okay.
All the other crypto foundations are funded by like a pre-mine or something, or like a mining tax or something like that. Whereas the Litecoin Foundation is, what's surprising to most people is that Litecoin Foundation was started in 2016. So 5 years after the coin. And basically, a bunch of us came together to decide that we want to start a nonprofit foundation to support the coin and to raise money via donation and merchandise sales. People make fun of us about selling t-shirts, right? But we make some money from selling t-shirts and we pay developers. And it's not a lot, but we do whatever we can to kind of support the coin. So I guess that's how the Litecoin Foundation works. It's a nonprofit foundation. The directors aren't getting paid anything. Most of us are volunteering our time to help support Litecoin. Yeah.
And then in terms of the attempt to increase adoption, and I'm assuming that's through, marketing specifically, like what does that look like? Like what are your regular tasks to try and do that?
A lot of like trying to create partnerships, work with different companies in this space. Like we partner with Turnio to release the Litecoin card. So it's like a Visa card that is backed by Litecoin, right? When you swipe the card, it would convert Litecoin to however much dollar you need to pay for a cup of coffee or whatever.
Right.
Just to different ways to push for adoption.
As Wade mentioned here in the bio, next month we're coming up real close to Litecoin's 10th anniversary. Has the success of the coin outweighed your expectations? And maybe what are some of the highlights along the journey of maybe some of the big advancements you've made with Litecoin, or that Litecoin's made along the way?
Yeah. So, I mean, the highlight is actually the fact that Litecoin has zero downtime. Right. Since I launched it in October 13th of 2011, it's just been working flawlessly since then. Which is, I mean, to me, it kind of makes sense. It's a blockchain. It's the incentives are there to kind of self-preserving itself. It just works. Miners mine, and then users use it. It just works, right? There's no reason why it should fail. But we've seen a lot of other coins have networks that fail, and because it's they're just not well designed. So Litecoin, it just works, right? Fees are still low. If you like, trillions of dollars have been spent, have been sent on the network, and it just works. That's the kind of like the most amazing thing, is that it just works. What other things are cool about Litecoin? Kind of like the successes of Litecoin is when I created Litecoin, back then I was kind of trying to push for adoption, right? It's just myself, like talking to exchanges, trying to get them to list Litecoin. Funny thing is, one story is there's a lot of stuff about Mt. Gox back then. Mt. Gox would have like 97% of the trading volume of Bitcoin in 2011, 2012. It was the dominant player. And I talked to Mark Karpeles, the CEO of Mt. Gox, and we've actually kind of worked on. He was into launching Litecoin on Mt. Gox. It was actually going to happen. He was upgrading his engine. There's all this stuff about like jokes about talked about the Midas engine, about how it was kept on getting delayed. But just before Litecoin was actually going to get launched on Mt. Gox, the whole thing blew up. So
Dodged a bullet.
In hindsight, we dodged a bullet, because if after we launched and people actually put a lot of Litecoins on the site, those people would get hurt. So thank goodness we didn't launch on Mt. Gox, but it was going to happen. It was about to happen. But back then there were the major like companies in Bitcoin space. I've approached them about Litecoin and they all blew me off. Like, really? I'm talking about like the blockchain.com, the BitGo, Coinbase, like Kraken, Bitfinex, they all blew me off, right? So I'm just happy like today, like they all support Litecoin now. And so that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Oh, 100%. So this is a rare treat for us, right? Like we've had some awesome guests on our show who really knowledgeable in various areas, but it's really rare that we get to talk to somebody who's been around throughout basically crypto's history, like the majority of it, the last decade. What do you make of just everything that has happened in the blockchain space? Like if you can kind of go back into 2011 of maybe if someone was to ask you at that point, where's the industry going to be in 10 years? Would you have imagined, like what has surprised you over the last decade?
What surprised me is how much it's grown, right? So when I first got into this space, I thought it was awesome, right? The whole kind of concept of blockchain, Bitcoin, I thought it was going to become huge, but it's already like surpassed what I thought it would become. And also in terms of price, like back then, my kind of really optimistic price target was $5,000 in 10 years.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's 10 times better than what I expected.
That one.
But then, sorry to go back to that. Back then, when you like, let's say you were to say that to somebody, I think that would have been a crazy thing to say at that point in time.
Because it was $30, so getting to 5,000 is 100x increase in 10 years, and that's already that's like blows away like all these other investments, right? So no, like people thought it was crazy. There's no way that would happen, right? And it blew away my like super optimistic kind of prediction already, which is pretty crazy.
Was the same true then for Litecoin? From a price standpoint, the value and growth of the coin, just the adoption when you look at market cap, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect anything from Litecoin, right? So it was just a fun project I just launched on the side. It kind of just took off, right? And the beauty about it is I can't stop it. Like I can't stop the network. I can't stop Litecoin, right? Yeah. So it just continues to work, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. The crazy thing is back then the whole market cap of Bitcoin when I got into Bitcoin was $200 million. That was the market cap of Bitcoin.
So crazy.
And Litecoin surpassed that like by a lot already, which is crazy if you think about it. Yeah, I mean the whole journey has been a wild ride, and it's up and down, right? Like there's years of kind of misery when people think it's all going to zero, but that happens every 4 years. So
speaking of that, I mean, do you have any theories, right? Like, I mean, I guess first off, words of warning, right? Because I think there's a lot of people who get into crypto when the price starts to get exciting and it starts to get headlines and that type of thing. But inevitably what happens then is a lot of people end up getting wrecked, right? Like they get in at the top kind of thing, and then they see the price crashing, they bail, and they call crypto a scam. And then 3 years later, they're back incentivized to get back in when the price starts going up again. So I guess like, I'll ask you first on the idea of this 4-year cycle that has kind of played out. Do you have any theories? Do you think that will continue? Or now there's some rumors of this idea of a super cycle, or is it all just who knows? What are your thoughts?
I think the 4-year cycle will continue. It kind of follows the block halving every 4 years. I think over time will become less and less wild, it'll be less and less crazy in terms of the ups and downs as we stabilize towards kind of the eventual price or value of what a Bitcoin is worth, or what. Yeah, and in terms of the super cycle, I don't buy into that theory. I think so. The theory about super cycle is that this cycle is going to be the craziest cycle ever, or
I think the idea is that the cycle is lengthening, and so when we talk about it being super, I think it's because it will go higher and higher before we have a big crash, but it will also take longer to get there.
Huh. Yeah, I don't think the cycle will be any different from that cycle. We'll see. I guess we'll see.
We will, right? Who knows?
If it plays out the same way, we'll have a really big high coming soon.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Hey, a question that I have. So, I watched your interview with Up Only. Those guys do a great job over there, by the way. And you guys talked a little bit about merge mining and how between Doge and Litecoin, and I thought it was a really interesting topic, and I think it's something a lot of our audience probably isn't aware of. Do you mind touching on what exactly merge mining is and how that works between Dogecoin and Litecoin?
Yeah. So when I launched Litecoin, one thing I was sure to do is to make sure that Litecoin's mining algorithm is not the same as Bitcoin. So what that means is, so that when miners that are mining Bitcoin, let's say ASIC miner, machine mining Bitcoin, it wouldn't be able to mine Litecoin because it's not Litecoin uses a different algorithm to mine, right? So back then it was GPUs that were mining Bitcoin cannot mine Litecoin, right? You needed CPUs to mine Litecoin. So you're not competing with Bitcoin for miners, and also there's no chance of miners from one coin attacking the other coin, right? So right now, like Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, they both use SHA-256 for mining. So Bitcoin miners can decide, do I want to mine Bitcoin? Do I want to mine Bitcoin Cash? Or do I want to mine Bitcoin SV, right? And the downside of that is miners jump around between chains, causing the smaller chains kind of hash rate to spike up and down. And also miners can potentially attack, like a small Bitcoin pool has enough hash rate to overwhelm a Bitcoin SV network. Right. And that's why you see like Bitcoin SV getting 51% attack, because it costs almost nothing to do that. So back then, I think it was 6 years ago, Dogecoin launched with script mining. So it was competing with Litecoin for miners. And it became clear to me that it will become very cheap for script miners to attack Dogecoin. For like kind of like effectively the Litecoin miners to attack Dogecoin. So I suggested to the Dogecoin community that they should do something called merge mining. The concept of merge mining is basically just the miners can mine both coins at the same time. The proof of work can be applied to both Litecoin and the Dogecoin network. So they're mining both coins at the same time. They get both rewards at the same time. But that required like a hard fork for one coin to support merge mining. And the Dogecoin community initially were very skeptical of this, right? They thought it was trying to come to sabotage the coin because Dogecoin is going to overtake Litecoin. At the time, Dogecoin overtaking Litecoin was kind of not, it was a joke, right? It was not going to happen. So eventually they decided that it was a good idea. So they decided to implement merge mining. And from that point onwards, the Litecoin network, the Litecoin miners were mining both coins and was protecting Dogecoin and Litecoin. So Dogecoin did not get 51% attacked and had no problems. People did not have to worry about the network security of Dogecoin like they do have to worry about today about Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin SV. Or and that was it. And kind of because of that, Dogecoin was able to survive and over the past 5-6 years, because there was no it was kind of being protected by Litecoin miners all along.
Yeah, we'll never, I guess, know for sure. But do you think that potentially that move did like save Dogecoin from what could have been maybe disastrous?
I think for sure it did. It did save Dogecoin. I think if they didn't do something like that, or they could have done something different, right? They could have switched to a new mining algorithm so that it's not competing with Litecoin, or they could have done other things, other more kind of centralized solution, right? Like checkpointing, or just basically having a centralized party saying like this is the right chain, so that attackers can't really attack it. But the decentralized way was doing merge mining. And if they didn't do anything, it would have been very disastrous. It would have cost like $1 to attack the Dogecoin network. Wow. And people could just done it for just for fun, right? So it definitely helped. Yeah.
Over the last 10 months, Doge has had quite the ride. Maybe not in recent months. It's kind of stabilized a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, is that something you could have foreseen, or like how surprised were you of kind of the year that Doge has had?
I mean, it was definitely a huge surprise, right? So Dogecoin was kind of just disappeared, right? Like the developers Dogecoin, because no one was using it. It was a joke. People like the meme it was a passing fad, right? The meme became a passing fad. The coin became a passing fad. And then because no one was using it, the developers all stopped developing Dogecoin, right? So there has been a client update for 3-4 years. But then what happened was Elon Musk started talking about it, and that was it, right? That's all it took, was the kind of the most wealthiest, most popular guy on Twitter to talk about Dogecoin like a lot, and that's all it took.
Yeah, it's crazy. Another big story of the last year has been NFTs, and like I think I heard you on another interview saying that you're not really buying into the the fad of NFTs and that kind of thing. But what are your thoughts? I mean, I think initially people are talking about how this is a pretty novel concept in terms of, and especially when you start maybe adding the smart contracts and the utility or NFTs that have some form of utility. But what are your thoughts? Is this kind of an overrated technology in your opinion?
So I think it is overrated, but it's also something unique, right? So before cryptocurrencies, there was no way to have a digital item that is kind of non-fungible, right? A non-fungible item in the digital space is not possible, right? If you have a song, someone can just copy it like byte for byte, and they'll be identical, right? So that concept is very special, right? There's definitely value in that, to be able to create something where, I mean, Bitcoin is effectively that, right? It's even though Bitcoins are fungible, it's something that you can't reproduce, right? If you have one, you send it to someone else, they have it now, you don't have it. You can't kind of fake it, right? So that's interesting. But what's happening right now is kind of which is overrated, is the fact that these images, these like pictures, these digital like pictures are being traded, but the pictures themselves are not valuable, right? I can just copy these avatars. They're not really valuable. So I think people are kind of losing track of what's actually valuable.
You mean a picture of a rock isn't valuable?
Yeah. So just the fact that it can be traded does not really give it value, right? The fact that it's non-fungible does not give it value. The underlying asset needs to be valuable, right? So it's like gold is valuable, but there's tons of other like precious metals, right? If someone can just create a new precious metal, the fact that the quantity is limited, the fact that it's non-fungible doesn't make it valuable, right? The underlying thing has to be valuable. So now we have like the CryptoPunks, we have the whatever, like I can't even remember what all the crazy stuff out there is, right? The
Bored Ape Yacht Club. There's all sorts
the
of
Bored Ape Yacht Club, the lions, the penguins. The thing is, like, you can just create like infinite amount of these things, and they have, right? There's like, if you look at it right now, there's like millions of them just copying each other. Yeah, maybe some of them will hold value, but the vast majority of them will not, right? Like it's a tulip bubble problem, right? It's speculators speculating that there's going to be another sucker going to buy this from them for twice as much, like a week later, and so far it's been happening, but eventually the bubble will burst, and unfortunately, like the people who can least afford it are the ones that will be left holding the bag. And that's kind of the unfortunate thing about crypto in general.
What about though? Okay, so like I don't disagree with a lot of what you said. I think that's totally fair. But what about when we get into like right now for NFTs, collectibles are kind of like that's what's popular. That's where this hype has been. But there is a lot of other use cases for NFTs that I think will be interesting to explore in the future when we talk about like real world scenarios for example, like personal identification, or we could think about like legal documents that could be in the form of NFTs that do have a lot of upside to be a digital asset versus just something that you have like a paper copy of.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on maybe right now some of the hype is overrated for the use case of these NFTs, but is there maybe still a great future that we just aren't living in quite yet?
I mean, yeah, definitely, right? So the concept is neat, to like tokens and NFTs, just to have it represent something. But the speculative part of that is not healthy.
Yeah,
right? It's not, and it's kind of inevitable that it would crash and burn. It's just a matter of when, right? So people are paying like $500,000 for like a picture, right? of owning and being able to say I own this picture, even though like anyone can own this picture. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, you ask anyone, it doesn't make any sense. So that's not that. There's no way that can last, right? There's no way like there's going to be these NFTs that are worth $500,000. Maybe there might be one that's worth $500,000. That's why a lot of people are chasing the kind of like the old, the original ones, like the ones that are minted in 2016, right? The rare PPs or the Spousal Genesis cards, which I actually have a few. But I think I think it's gonna end badly, unfortunately.
Charlie, this has been such a good conversation, and we always wrap every interview up with the same 3 questions that we ask every guest. But right before that, we've talked about, kind of the last decade and the fact that this is Litecoin's 10th anniversary coming up next month. If you had to kind of crystal ball gaze into what you see in the future, though, like what are you excited about for where you see blockchain tech going in the next 10 years?
My focus is still payments, using blockchain as money. So what I'm kind of working on right now and excited about right now is just is a project that we're doing called MWeb, which stands for Mimblewimble Extension Block. So we're adding Mimblewimble as kind of like a extension block, like kind of like an attached side chain to Litecoin, where you can move your Litecoins to this chain, and once you're there, everything uses a Mimblewimble protocol, which makes coins more fungible, more private, and it scales better. So I think fungibility and privacy are very important. I'd like to see us kind of the crypto space move towards things that are more fungible, even though non-fungible tokens are the hype these days. I think fungibility is more valuable.
All right, Charlie, like I said, this has been such a great conversation, but we like to end every episode of Show Me the Crypto with the same 3 questions segment called You Had Me at Crypto. Ulf is going to ask you these questions.
All right, Charlie, you ready?
Sure.
Cool. The first question is, who's your favorite person to follow in the crypto space?
Who's my favorite person to follow? That's a good question. The last time someone asked me that, my answer was Udi Wertheimer. I thought his tweets are really funny and really on point. I'm trying to see if there's someone else that's kind of high up there. Can't think of anyone right now. Yeah.
I guess it's still
Myself.
the same then. Yeah. There you go.
Wow.
Go follow Charlie Lee.
I like to follow myself.
Yeah. All right. Second question. What will the price of Bitcoin be 10 years from now? And we have to double up this question with what will the price of Litecoin be? And this is just for fun. We're talking a decade out. So.
That's a good question. 10 years is a long time. I think I could see Bitcoin hitting $500,000 to $1 million. It all depends on what happens to the US dollar, right? So if it's priced in US dollar and the Fed keeps printing money like crazy, like what they did the past year, it's inevitable that the value of dollar would go away, and then the Bitcoin price in dollar would be very large, right? But that doesn't mean that's just because the dollar is getting destroyed, right? So it could easily reach like a huge number if the dollar like hyperinflates, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But in terms of like today's value, I would say $500,000 would be a big win.
So I got an interesting point, because we don't often get to talk to people who had a prediction of Bitcoin 10 years ago, but you said that at the time you probably figured Bitcoin might get to $5,000, and it's gotten past 50.
10x from that. So $5 million.
So if you're thinking $500,000, yeah, I think 5 million is probably more correct.
Maybe. Well, I'll do another interview with you guys in 10 years.
Deal.
Right,
we're going to hold you to it. And then Litecoin. What's your Litecoin prediction?
let's say 500,000 also.
Love it.
Perfect.
I don't want to say anything because people will hold me to it. So
I like it.
500,000 sounds good.
Cool. Okay, third question here. What's the most underrated coin or project in all of crypto?
Obviously Litecoin.
That is obvious. That's why we're not going to let you answer.
Yeah, you have to say something else.
Yeah, we
What's
need
the
an
most
alternative.
Underrated project.
Yeah.
I think like Lightning Network is underrated. I think give it some time, Lightning Network would be ubiquitous. It would like people would just be using it without even realizing they're using the Lightning Network. I think it's going to take some time. There's still a lot of stuff to work out, but I think that is underrated.
We were talking to Jeff Booth lately. We had an interview with him, and he was saying the same thing. And I'll admit I don't have experience using Lightning Network myself yet, so I got to give it a shot. It's getting some
high praise.
high praise.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Charlie, this has been an absolute highlight for us having you on our show. Thank you so much for joining Ulf and I on this episode of Show Me the Crypto.
Sure. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thank you for listening to Show Me the Crypto. Please make sure to subscribe as well as rate and review this podcast.